Namaste, and thank you very much for having me here. It is always good to be the key speaker on an April Fool's Day. And so I was saying, now, how do I tell my wife or my office that I was the keynote speaker on an April Fool's Day? So I went looking into the dictionary looking for some dignified meaning of fool. And this is what I found. A fool is the one who subverts convention or orthodoxy or varies from social conformity in order to reveal spiritual or moral truth. So if we go by that definition, this is in the Free English Dictionary. It fits very well with all of you who are here, innovators, because a fool is a nonconformist. You know, you remember stories of Akbar and Birbal, and every court had a jester or a comedian. This person, or if you have gone to a circus, the most talented circus artist is actually the joker, right? Now, this jester in the court of the king always was the only person who could actually ask difficult questions, make difficult statements, and was not thrown out or killed, because that was that person's role. Yeah? And if you also look at a deck of cards, anyone play cards, rummy or something? Yeah? In the deck of cards, if you look at the confirmed way in which the cards are organized, an ace is usually the strongest card, right? But an ace is the strongest card only within those defined parameters. For me, the strongest card is the joker. Because when you take the joker and include it in the game, it can take any shape, any number, and can actually change the whole complexion of the game. And that is why the joker, or the nonconformist, is the most powerful person on this earth. And all of us, I think, belong to that category. That's why you are here. I mean, why are you here on 1st April Fool's Day, right? Listening to someone who's come from somewhere you don't know, right? So you are nonconformists. And the thing about the innovator is that an innovator is not afraid to go into the unknown. It transcends the fear of unknown. Yeah? You go into areas that no one has gone before, which essentially means that you are willing to take risk, and you are willing to fail, and you are willing to be laughed at. But you have a commitment to find something that others have still not found. Right? So if you look at the tortoise or a turtle, you know, kachua, so it walks slowly, and that is not the point here. But when it wants to play safe, what it does, it pulls its legs and its neck inside the shell and sits over there and is very safe. You can hit it with a stick or do whatever you want. You cannot damage the turtle. The problem is, till the turtle sticks its neck out, it cannot move forward, right? So here's the thing. You can be a turtle and a very safe person, but if you are an innovator, you have to stick your neck out. And unless you stick your neck out, and when you stick your neck out, you, of course, expose yourself to the unknown. You expose yourself to the fear and the risk. But that is where the fun is. That is where the breakthrough is. Now, how does innovation happen? And I usually say there are two ways. One is when there is a breakdown. When everything collapses, nothing is working, people are forced to find something new to make it work. But that is very kind of difficult, because why do you want everything to break down to actually find something new? So the other way innovation that happens is when you change the conversation. I mean, if you bring down innovation or the origin of innovation to its barest simplicity, what you are doing is changing the conversation. If everyone is talking in one way, an innovator goes and changes the conversation. So if everyone is saying there is no broadband, there is no broadband, there is no broadband, an innovator goes and says, hey, here is a solution that I bring in where you can actually do this without the broadband. Yeah? So you change the conversation. Where everywhere there is pessimism, an innovator goes and changes the conversation and brings optimism. And therefore, the role that an innovator plays is extremely, extremely important. Yeah? So, welcome to April Fools, and welcome to the talk on innovation. So, I remember reading, and I read Mahatma Gandhi, and he said, first, they ignore you. And this is what happens to an innovator. When you talk about your idea, people will first ignore you. Then they will laugh at you, pagla hai, murkh hai. Yeah? They call you a fool, call you foolish. Then, if you continue, they will fight with you. You don't know this, this is how it is done all our life. You are coming up and you're doing some nonsense, you're wasting time, you're wasting money. And then if you still continue, then what happens? You win. And then the whole world starts doing what you're doing. The story of how many of you have heard the story of the 100th monkey? Anyone? No. So what happened, and this is a real story. On the beaches of Nigeria, there were lots of monkeys. And then there's this fruit tree that grows on the beach, which has a very soft shell. So the fruit would fall down, but would get wrapped in sand. And the older monkeys would try to eat it, but the sand would come. They didn't like it, so they wouldn't eat it. So none of the monkeys were eating that food. Till one day, this one foolish monkey came, small one, threw the fruit into the water, into the ocean. The fruit came back, the sand was washed out, and it started eating. No other monkey wanted to do that. 2 days, 3 days, but this monkey kept on eating. Suddenly, 3, 4 monkeys started eating. And then 2 more joined. And then one day, suddenly, all the monkeys in Nigeria were actually eating that fruit overnight, one day, and that is the critical mass. But not only in Nigeria, in Australia, they found exactly the same thing that the monkeys had started doing. So the innovator is actually a dissenter. What happens is you're usually alone. You come up with an idea. You talk to people. 95% of the people will say you are foolish. And many of you would drop that idea then and there. Some of you would continue. And then people will laugh, this person is wasting time, not serious. The father is rich and therefore this person doesn't care or something. If you still continue, then they will get angry with you. But when you win, then what happens is you would actually be the first one to start creating a critical mass that can change the world. And so you have to go through that pain and through that cycle. And fortunately, here you have people in private sector, in public sector, Alan is there, other groups are here, the university is there, where what they are doing is they are actually protecting you from that laughing, fighting kind of cycle and giving you space so that you can actually nurture as an innovator and then operate, right? I've used the word dissenter. Now, dissent is different from opposition. When you look at any democracy or even dictatorship, there is a place for opposition. Yeah? You have an opposition party. But there is no place in the best democracy in the world for dissent. So if you don't follow the party whip, whether you are in the opposition or the government, your party is going to throw you out. Dissenters are always alone. Okay? They don't walk in groups. They can meet in a location like this, but you're all alone with your own idea. You're not happy with the status quo. You are always curious. You always want to change. You are asking questions. All that is very, very irritating. And all of you have gone through all this. But you will usually be alone, and you would be the lone voice that would be saying, I don't accept the situation as it is, and I want to do something about it. And so innovators are also people who are dissenters. Now, when UNICEF started talking about innovation, the first reaction of everyone was to create a post. Now we will have a post on innovation. And it took us 1 year to explain that innovation is not a post. It is not a job description. It is an attitude. It is an approach to things. It is not a section that you create or an office of innovation and suddenly innovation starts happening. Nothing else changes. So you have to be careful about this, about this being how you approach things, how you question people or question the status quo. And that is the beginning of innovation. Now, how do we, if you go to the website and type the word innovation and definition of innovation, you will find there are, actually, in real life, I'm a lot thinner than what you see there or here. This is the holographic image that Alan was talking about. So you'll find 42 different definitions, at least. And so what we did was, we said, let's try to simplify it. I mean, the first thing of innovation is to simplify things, not to complicate things. So the definition that we use in UNICEF is anything new or different that adds value. It is different from invention, which is always new, but may or may not add value. It's different from improvement, where you're doing something and it takes you half an hour, you keep on doing it, then it takes you 5 minutes. That's improvement. That's not innovation. Yeah? But it has to also add value. If it doesn't add value, then it's a nice hobby. You can do it, but it doesn't go anywhere. Now, what that means is that if each one of you go back in your life, at some point, you will realize that you have done something which was new or different, and that is why and that was recognized by someone, and that is why you are where you are today. Yeah? So innovators don't come with 4 legs and 3 heads and 2 arms. Each one of us has an innovator in us. We may not have articulated it like that, we may not have classified it like that, or we may not have recognized that we did something new or different, which has added value to whatever work was going on. So that is the important thing. Don't look for messiahs, don't look for geniuses. Each one of you has an innovator in you. And you will find, if you just reflect back on who you are, what you did, how did you get where you were, you will find a story there where you did something which was new or different that added value to your life and your family's life or your community's life. The most important thing that we have learned, because innovation is something new, we cannot, and there are no precedents, new and different. So it would be kind of foolish for me to try to tell you how to do innovation. All I can do is share what we have gone through and what we think we have learned out of our work, which is over the last 6-7 years. The first thing we realized is simplicity is the key. Now, a lot of us, we are very complex creatures, and the more we study, the more complex we become, right? Because when you study, you are in primary or something, you study 8 subjects. Then you go into college, you go down to 3 or 4 subjects. Then you do your master's, you're down to 1 subject, and then you do your PhD. Within 1 subject, you are the left knee doctor kind of thing, right? And the more you go into the detail, the more you understand the complexity of the issue. And so our tendency when we design something is to bring our knowledge, our complexity into it. The fact of the matter is that the computers work not because of complexity, because of simplicity, binary, 0, 1. Imagine if the computer operating was designed on the basis of national language of any country, it would have been a disaster, right? So it works because of the very simple thing. Now, when something is simple, then you can make it as complex as you want. But if you start with something complex, it is very difficult to make it simple. And therefore, simplicity, Steve Jobs. So Apple's how did Apple first become popular. Why? Because instead of the MS-DOS, big, complex screens, they had icons. They came up with icon. You press the icon and you go where you have to go. Simplicity. And then the second revolution of Apple and Steve Jobs came in, because Steve Jobs has a very simple idea. I need to be able to carry my music wherever I go. That was the simple question that was framed. And that's what led to iPod. He didn't go that I want to create iTunes and this and that. All that complexity came much later. The simple thing was, the starting point was, I need to be able to carry my music because I love music and I drive long distances. I need to be able to carry my music instead of putting all the CDs in and out. Yeah? Then, of course, then iPod became very famous. He said, hey, let's put a telephone on it. Why should I carry a telephone and a music system? Let's put it on top of that. iPhone came in. And today iPod is dead, iPhone is alive, right? It all starts with simplicity, and then you can make it as complex as possible. The second thing we learned was that even though we are working on the system, we are not necessarily the ultimate users of that system or whatever innovation it is. And therefore, whatever we design from our perspective is not necessarily the best. The best way is actually to put the user in the center. We have gone to the extent of actually having the user design the system, then bring in technology. Because ultimately, for that innovation to be successful, it has to have the engagement and involvement of the end user. It has to be designed from the perspective of the end user. Not that you design something, now you expect everyone else to learn it. And that's why many of the great innovations fail when they are scaled up or taken into public domain, because people expect others to learn because they have designed it the way they think it should work. The third thing, which is increasingly coming up, which we learned, is that collaboration is taking over competition. If you look at the older model of business models, everyone was competing with everyone. Everyone wanted to do everything. But now what is coming up, people have realized that, hey, I don't have to do everything. I don't have to spend all my money. I mean, look at Coke and Pepsi. They spend more money on fighting each other than on actually research to produce new products. Yeah? Their whole life is spent on fighting each other. The new model is, I'm good at something, you're good at something, let's come together, and that's what you are doing, is he's not fighting people, he's identifying good people, helping them become better so that he can benefit and work with all of them, and that's collaboration. So from competition to collaboration. The other thing that we have learned is you need to fail fast. There has to be a room for failing quickly, which leads to the idea of rapid prototyping, which means don't spend 3 years designing something in your house and then coming up and saying, now I have the perfect solution, because that is never the perfect solution. Design, prototype, take it out, test it, change it, come back, revise it, go back, do it as many times as required till you find that you've reached the stage where you have reached. And the faster you do that, the better you will, not only will be your learning, but the better would your product become and would go out into the market. So fail fast, rapid prototyping. The other emerging thing is all big companies earlier used to work, or still many of them, work on the basis of shareholders. So you have a board, you have shareholders, and you have to make profit and give it to the shareholder. That was your objective as a company. It didn't matter whether people lived or died. As long as you gave profit to your company, and you saw during the market crashes and all, CEOs were getting 200% whether the company was failing or not. Yeah? Even the companies that went bankrupt paid their CEOs $120 million to get out. All right? So the model is shifted from being focused on shareholder to focus on stakeholder, which means who are the people totally in the ecosystem of that product, of that company, which includes beneficiaries as well and consumers as well. It doesn't throw the shareholders out. Shareholders are important stakeholders, but it includes others as well. So the thinking is changing, the way people are working. So you will find that Boeing 777, which is one of the most successful aircrafts, was actually designed by the people. They had thousands of people, passengers, cargo handlers, chefs, the hostesses, all of them actually were involved in designing 777, because ultimately those are the stakeholders in this exercise. And the shareholders were also there, making sure that the costs don't escalate and the returns come back and they make money. So now, what I'm going to say now might upset some of the technology people, or I mean coders especially, because coders like to write very specific programs, because clearly the best code they can write when they know exactly what you want as the outcome. Otherwise, you know, if you are not specific enough, the code cannot be specific enough, right? What we have found is that that works well in the commercial sector, or when there is a hardware kind of product where you are very specific about what you want. But it does not often work well when you are trying to create building blocks that could be used for many different things, right? So what we focus more on are building blocks that can be used in multiple ways, and what we focus on are generic modular development, which can then be customized. So what that does is that changes the business model from money for code. So you know, I have written the code, I have the IP for the code, and therefore if you want to use it, you take a license and you use it. It changes the business model from that to a business model where deployment, training, customization becomes the big money earner. The difference between these two is, I mean, someone or the other is going to tomorrow write a better code after looking at what you're doing, right? So you can only sell your code so many times. But deployment, customization, service is an endless process. You can go country after country after country deploying, training, customizing, and every time your program actually improves, your code improves, your code changes. So that's the other business model that we find is important. The other thing we learned was that the solutions that we are trying to look for a particular sector, let's say health, usually the solution will not be found in the health sector. They would be found in associated sectors, because there are associated technologies that are out there that actually make a difference. So for instance, when we wanted to do secure birth registration, which means the data has to be secured, we have to make sure that when the data is sent, it goes straight into the server, etc. We went to whom? We went to people who were doing cash transfers, or we went to phone companies that were using a system to top a phone. You know, when you want to put more money in your phone. Now, since that is the commercial model for the telephone companies, that has to be the best code that can operate in that environment. So instead of writing our code, we went there and said, hey, instead of topping up money, can you do something so that we can send names? So USSD based systems. So it's associated technologies that actually allow breakthroughs and innovations to happen. So regardless of which sector you are working in, look for other things that are happening around, and you will certainly find things that someone else is doing for a totally different purpose that actually answers the problem that you are facing today. So keep your eyes open. Don't be like, you know, horses. Earlier days you had horses and you put something on its eye so that it doesn't see here and then just walk straight. You have to stop being that. Yeah. The other thing is, we talk a lot about knowledge, etc. So there is noise, which then you can convert that into data, you convert it into information, and then you convert it into knowledge. And 95% of the people end up at the knowledge stage. But Buddha is Buddha not because of his knowledge. He is Buddha because of his wisdom. Okay? Dalai Lama is not Dalai Lama because of his knowledge. He is there because of his wisdom. And the difference between the two is knowledge is like Google search. You go there and there are 10,000 papers out there, right? Wisdom is what is the essence of those 10,000 papers in 2 lines. Trust me, if you have to write a PhD thesis of 10,000 pages, it's a very easy job. But if you have to write a PhD thesis that is restricted to 2 pages, you have to work 10 times more to really understand what is the essence here. And that is the definition of an expert who can look at 10,000 pieces of information, bring it down, and says, this is what it means, and this is how it functions. So, sorry, I'm going very slow, or how am I doing for time? Okay. So, that brings us, I mean, these are some of the experience, but then brings us to Nepal. Let's bring it down home. Why do we need innovation in Nepal? And Alan has said a lot of things on why it is needed. I believe that constraints bring out creativity in people. And a lot of us are living in emerging markets with lots of constraints. And therefore, there is every opportunity for creativity to come out from here. Yeah? You have remote areas which are totally disconnected. You have mountains. You have limited infrastructure. If you take all these constraints, the opportunities for creativity and innovation are tremendous. Then you are sitting between 2 large countries, right? Now, it is like David and Goliath. You know the story of David and Goliath, right? A small human being trying to fight a giant. You can't go with a stake and a stone and then go, no, it doesn't work. He's going to beat you up and throw you in the corner. You have to find a smart way of beating them, right? And you are in that situation. I mean, you need to be creative. And unless you are creative, it is very difficult for you to actually kill the Goliath. You don't have to kill Goliath. I would also die. I mean, but kind of come above the Goliath, right? Think Singapore, how it has innovated its whole economy and become a very, very rich country, right? In spite of the small size. Nepal has to be extremely creative. So the usual business models, cut and paste development models are not going to work here. You have to find new ways of doing things which are smarter, which are sharper, which actually overcome constraints without having to create this and wait for the whole infrastructure to be built. Showing some figures over there. You have a large number of young people. You have the fastest aging population also. You also have a lot of brain drain. So if you don't innovate, create opportunities for people, you will have a country but no people in it. Everyone is running away. And we have seen that in Africa already. A lot of intelligent, educated people running away in spite of the fact that Africa has had the highest growth rate for the last 12 years in the world, as high as China. But people are leaving right, left, and center. Why? Because all this growth is jobless growth. The increase in money is going for the few, but the masses are not growing with it. And so it's a jobless growth. And what we are learning today in schools and universities, unfortunately, does not translate into a job. So there is a whole different ecosystem that needs to be there. And we have to turn around the young as a constraint or the young as a burden to our economy and to our country into the young as a resource. I mean, if you got, what, 1 in 4 people are young here or more? 50% less than 40? That is a huge resource that can be turned around. And innovative ways of doing things would be the answer to do that. So usually, I mean, this is true in every country of the world. When you go and talk to people about their country, and they will tell you 100 things that are going wrong, right? True for Nepal also. I mean, you talk to anyone, so what do you think of Nepal? And they will say, no, this is not working, this is not working, this is not working, this is not working. So I've been here 3 days, okay? And it's very easy to say what is not working. But let me bring to your attention what I have seen of what is working. I have met young people who are passionate, who are extremely bright. I'll give you an example, something on which we spend 4 months of consultants working with experts to create flows, to create an app, I am told was created here in what, 54 hours? By these 3 or 4 young people without any payment. I mean, and when I looked at the flows, I couldn't have thought of a better way in which they had organized the information and the flow. It is amazing for me to see that kind of talent sitting with young people here. I have seen private sector in this country. I have seen university in this country. I have seen the UN agency in this country, all coming together, working and creating things like the Idea Studio, like the business collaboratory, whatever you call it, here, or the university that is running Idea Studio, or Alan and his group that is actually creating startup spaces and guiding startups. It's not easy to find this in many countries. I met another group today, sitting in his home. He has been doing remote sensing, remote mapping for Philippines earthquake, rated 7 in the world compared to 93 countries. Who would have thought that electricity not there, this not there? This person is sitting in his office free of cost, doing mapping for Haiyan. And that is a tremendous resource. That is a tremendous resource. And all I can say is that I don't know what is going wrong with this country, but I definitely know that something very right is happening with this country right now. And we need to focus and take this, what is happening right, to scale. And to do that, I hope that like the business groups, etc., are coming together, like the development agencies also come together, and actually look at a comprehensive picture rather than everyone doing some small thing here and there, and perhaps create a fund, the innovation fund or whatever, youth fund, whatever they want. Pool in the resources, so there's a chunk of money where all these bright people, many of you sitting here, and the private sector company who are actually going out of their way to look for opportunities, create opportunities, not to make profit out of that, but to make sure that the next generation actually creates something that's even more sustainable, takes Nepal to the next level. And I hope that that can happen, because I travel a lot. I travel all the time. I'm basically in my house 1 or 2 days a month. That's it. And I'm honestly telling you, the excitement and the things that I've seen here in the last 3 days, I have not seen in many places. And what you're doing with your limitations, with your constraints and all, is just amazing and inspiring. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being who you are. And thank you for having me here. Yes,